G'day guys, Kelvin, Cartoon Company down under in New Zealand. Okay, got another wiring loom in front of me. Test for a 1UZ. 3 plugs going to the ECU. One of these big plugs like this. That's all around this area. That's nice and simple, isn't it? Comes along here. We have some broken coil plugs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another, the big rounded type oval coil plug. Straight away from that, we can see that this is a UCF 20 Celsius wiring loom. How do I know it's Celsius? Well, look down here. That's cam angle. That's hydraulic fan. I also know by the ECU. And this one does have an immobilizer. I have sorted it. It is a service that I do provide. I can remove the immobilizers from 1UZ Vvti ECUs. And I started doing it a long time ago. This particular wiring setup is going into a Hilux. So, let's try and put these two looms together. Here we go. And put that on there like that. That's good. Yep. 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 So this is out of 2008, 2009 Hilux with a KD powered diesel. I reckon if we put some tape around here. Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. Oh yeah, man. Yep. And I reckon a bit of tape over here. Yep. It's good. Perfect. Oh, we just go around the whole lot, eh? Yep. Beauty. Yeah, and we'll do over here. Oh yeah. Yep. Looks like she's done to me. Possibly not what the owner of this vehicle had in mind. Let's have a bit of a look around it and we'll come up with a plan, shall we? ECU wiring here. So very similar in this area. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this off, soften that up a little bit. It's going to run the factory ECU for the UZ, and it's going to run the factory ECU for the Hilux, so the dash works. Helpful hint right there. I'm not going to swap this grommet over in this case. I think it'll just be a bit of a pain in the backside. I think he can make his hole bigger. Yeah, I'm not really comfortable about saying that to a guy, actually. He's going to enlarge the firewall grommet hole in the Hilux so he can fit the UCF 20 Celsius one. If I was making a brand new loom, I'd use that, but in this case, I'm not going to. I'm going to refab this loom, give it a tidy up. You can see the coil plugs are broken. Ejector plugs, some of them are good, but some of them aren't. So they're not going to last. And here's the transmission loom. We're taking that out because it's manual. There's got to be a gearbox loom, and I think I've actually just taped it in. Give me a moment. Oh, look. Those ones there, they go to the fuse box under the bonnet. So we're going to use those. There is an alternator wire. So I'll have a chat to him about doing alternator wiring, how to do that. I often don't, but I think we're going to want to put that in this one. Water temp. So this is going to get 2 water temp sensors. Again, to make that factory dash work. There it is. Found the gearbox stuff. Here is gearbox loom. So basically what I'm going to do there is go snip, take this piece off, and that's going to stay, put a new plug on it, in this vicinity, and that will become the new gearbox harness. Really simple. Let's get into it. I've shown you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in and get it sorted, get it together. We'll see if I get some updates as I go through. I'm kind of going to wing this one a little bit. I don't have a proper plan. Not winging the wiring, done those before, winging the video. Man really wants to see it fire up on the engine, so that's something he's requested, and I like to try and do that as much as I can if a customer does request to see a startup video. So one really good thing about this is the customer talked to me about which engine is going to suit this job the best. So this is, as I said, is a late model Hilux. The model ran from 04, mainly 05, through to 2015. They get called different things in different countries too. But we call them a Hilux. Kun Hilux. You'll notice that the Vvti UCF20, the ECU's in the same place and the loom goes to the same place as the Hilux. And that's a big thing. Makes life much, much easier when the configuration of the loom actually works. This is where guys come to me and they've got say a 171 crown harness and it goes off the front of the engine, or a 3UZ harness, it's off the front of the engine. So it's not as easy to fit into the vehicle and it's going to cost more for wiring. So that's something to consider when you're doing these engine swaps, how everything suits and what engine fits the vehicle best. It's like an Altezza or an IS200. Those front looms, 171 crown, 3UZ work really well because they're like an Altezza or an IS because they come off the front of the engine. Same. I'm doing some stripping. This is the KD loom. I normally add extra wires, however I've decided to do a strip out because of the diff wiring. But pretty cool in here if you look, some of the plugs, like this one here, is the same as a Vvti sensor or a crank sensor. That's an injector plug, normal Toyota injector plug. Those are VSV plugs, different notches. There's the blue VSV, same as the grey. Maybe a gearbox speed sensor if you wanted a gearbox speed sensor. This one here, idle speed control, so they've recycled. And this is a nice clean job, of course. Look at this. Look how much dirt's in here. My hands are filthy. And that is what I've got left over from the whole wiring loom. This is all rubbish. Well, it's not completely rubbish. It's going in my recycling bin. And this, in some state, will be incorporated into the Vvti loom. Or the equivalent of these wires, because I may run some new stuff. Plugs under the bonnet. There's two of those, that one and that one. There's a gearbox loom, four-wheel drive computer, though there's only a couple of wires left. Oil pressure. I've got the alternator wiring, but it's going to be a different plug. There is a temp sensor in here somewhere. The water temp sensor. Oh, it's over here. Oh, I might have cut it off. And the air conditioning, because we want to put air conditioning in it. And I took a couple of wires out of the ECU. The diesel loom is now stripped. There's only a few wires that I'm going to need. So the Vvti harness is on my bench. Look at this. Gearbox is coming out. And because there's no transmission, we're going to replace it with something else that'll give some of the same signals. There was a piece of alternator taped to it, alternator wiring, and they look like the same size as the diesel one, so that's going to be separate. Oxy sensor, you probably need an airflow meter plug, probably going to need to repair that, and these plugs probably need to be repaired. And we're shoving some of the diesel stuff into this to do that one loom out of two thing. Over this side, aircon and oil pressure. Looks like these two are going to get recycled. We're going to need a fan switch of some sort. I'll bring that up in here. Right, we'll get into this. Check it out. We've got stuff happening. We've got a diff controller that goes down to the front diff. It hangs off the front of the engine. We'll sew it at the end, of course, as well. There's an airflow meter plug that this loom didn't have an airflow meter plug. And yes, I did a bit of recycling. Did I say there was an alternator plug? There's an alternator plug, like the Hilux. So that's in the loom. I pulled a loom to pieces, the Hilux loom, and I've used some of the wires in this Lexus loom. And before guys give me shit about recycling and using old wires, I know I'm putting a 20-year-old loom into a 12-year-old Hilux. So I've got some 12-year-old wires in an old loom. Oh, wait, that's newer wires. The wires are actually in all pretty good order, and it meant I could keep the same Toyota colours or very close, and the right sizes. And they're 8 years newer than this loom that we're fitting back into the truck. So I've done measure ups, checked where the grommet is, it looks good. The loom has got no plugs on this side, so I've got a box of shitty old plugs. The injector plugs looked okay until I took them apart, and they were pretty hard. So I think it's getting new ones. Coil plugs, absolutely shattered when I was getting in there. Look at that. It just all fell to pieces inside. That one's actually holding together well, except the bottom's full. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Just fell to pieces. So the wiring loom looks like this on this side, because Mr. Cartoon has been there. I have not been here. Hey, one of those coil plugs survived. Did you hear that? It was that good. Broken plugs. New plugs. Look at those. Hopefully I've got all the pins in the right positions too. No. Check it out, guys. Well, that was loud. We have relays. Well, we have relay holders. And we have fuses. Well, we've got a fuse box. And I've got to connect these bits into that thing. And these ones into there. And that one's already connected. Look, that one. Yep, that'll connect. And then it will do what it's meant to do. And wires to connect. Ready to plug. Oh, I better put a plug on. There we go. Relays and fuses. Done. Ready to plug in, power up, and make this Hilux engine wiring loom run. It's ready to put it all together, power it up, and test it. I've got the loom sitting on the engine. I have the relays. I have the ECUs, and there's that harness. So to power up the whole system, I've taken the glow plug, a relay, made up a quick bridging tool. So that's going to go across those two big pins. So I'm going to plug the main ECU in like so, in a box. Done. We're going to plug the ECU in. Plugged in. And we can hear the throttle now working. That's a really good sign. They don't have a fuel pump prime, so don't go listening for fuel pump primes. Right, we're all in, we're all plugged in. We'll just give it a little kick and see what happens. I'm pretty happy with that. So it does make some noise. I'm going to put the airflow meter onto this engine now, and we'll see if it can start and run properly. It's up and it's running. So this is going to serve as a what I've done and how to install it. Let's get straight into it. First thing, this is the glow plug relay under the bonnet. There's a little bridging tool, bridge the two big wires. That's going to power up the whole circuit. Then it just plugs in to the fuse box like that. Plug, plug. There's voltage going in there. It comes through and it gets plugged in here at the fuse box. Like that. Easy. The factory ECU goes back into place and can be plugged in. The wiring loom gets popped onto the engine like so. This one has the alternator in it, has the diff control in it, oxygen sensors go in. This style airflow meter goes into place and it plugs in. All pretty much goes into spot. Air conditioning, that's for later on, so the air conditioning pump can be plugged in just on the single wire. Oil pressure out of the Hilux goes into the UZ, either there or there, though the UZ one will work. It's just a switch. This gets plugged onto the gearbox. Just plug it in like normal. And there's the two earths, there and there. Really simple. In this department, the ECU goes beside that ECU. The immobilizer box goes in and gets plugged in. And the whole setup just plugs together. Four-wheel drive computer gets plugged back in. And those two are the two body plugs. Just plug them back in. This is the little box that turns the Vvti back on after the transmission's been removed. If the transmission is removed from a Vvti, 1UZ or 3UZ, the Vvti will get turned off. So that's why fitting up that little box that replaces the signals from the transmission gets the Vvti working again correctly. Very, very important. The Vvti ECU can just plug in, and then we've got the relay and fuse box. It's all powered up, ready to go here, and it just plugs into the loom on those two. There's the power supply there for the box, and the scan tool can be plugged in. And there's two wires to connect: ignition and STA. These are the only two that actually need to be connected to make it run. You can see here I've got ignition connected in just over here. I just bridged in. But it's actually going to be tapped into this plug here, into the factory one, and you just tap it in. So the factory ECU has ignition in, and this one has the same signal going in. We also want STA. Again, factory ECU, but this time it can be cut. Later on, once you've got it running, the check light W can also be done. I've run the tacho out, but that's actually not going to be needed. I'm thinking it's probably just going to work. I did a bit of testing before, and I've got the tacho running off the KD ECU, and it does seem to work. And that's in there also to run the temp gauge on these. So often, guys do conversions, and the temp gauge doesn't work. Going forward, I do expect to actually have a unit that will do the water temp signal for the dash. But right now, it works really well, and it takes care of air conditioning. So it's a practical solution to these problems. And once it's done, it's in there, and it works really well. So it's really easy just to leave it there. I've also tapped in that wire, which is for the fan. So if you want to put it to a switch, that is an earth. Give that an earth, it will go. The fan will go. Fan outputs over here, there they go. And the fan switch, there's the wiring up on the engine, and there's a fan switch supplied to plug in. It may need a bit of an extension wire between the fan and the fan switch, which I've got some plugs in there for you. If this airflow meter isn't available, then there's the correct body for the correct airflow meter for the 1UZ Vvti with the big coils. Alternator wire. There's the big main power wire for the alternator. There it is there. Just pop it onto the factory position and over to the alternator, and it should be long enough. With all that done, it's really simple. You turn the key on and you start it. Easy. Oh, fuel pump. It won't go without a fuel pump. I've already tested that theory this morning, and it was true. It doesn't work without a fuel pump. Yeah. Third one, fuel pump. And of course, you already know where the fuel pump is beside the clutch pedal. So where it connects in, that wire's plenty long enough. And I'm using that wire to run my fuel pump. So let's turn it on and start it up. Turn it on, ignition on. When you turn the ignition on, it will power up. I've got my test light. We want voltage in here. Like that. If you bridged it to anywhere else, if you ran it to the battery just to test it and make it run, it's going to work. But I really want it tapped into that supply to the ECU. And then really easy. Pretty much plug it together, power, ignition power, and a start input, vroom vroom, it will go. For you guys out there that have watched this far and want a really simple solution to getting your 1UZ Vvti manual setup going, I've made up some universal type relay boxes as well. Very similar to the one I've used on this. This one's had the whole loom modified, as you can see. It now fits a Hilux. However, I have these setups. Plug into the ECU. There's 8 wires to connect into the main engine harness. A battery power feed. And we've got fuel pump, ignition in, and a start input, and vroom vroom, your Vvti will run. Same setup here. But I've included a start relay for those ones that the wiring to the start circuit might be a little bit marginal. So there's that one as well. Both of those setups have the plugs into the rear loom big coil Vvti. And I'll do them for the small ones as well, the small loom. And coming up really soon, 3UZs. So really simple solutions, especially once we've defeated the immobilizer. In the future, it will also, these ones may have an option to put the factory plug in, so it'll be a true plug-in setup. So you can flick me the ECU, I can sort a mobilizer, give you some relays and fuses, and a little box for the transmission replacement, and your manual Vvti is up and running. I hope this has all been helpful. The man's going to get his Hilux and make that run. Really excited there. And it'll be up and running in no time at all. Catch you again.